Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo in more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.
This is Griffin Conan.
This is Xavier Edwards.
This is Liam Hicks.
This is Dave Myers, and you're watching Fish on First live.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of FOF Live, presented by About the Fans. As always, you can check out their merchandise collection for your FOF merchandise and use the code FOF10 on checkout. Save 10% on all your FOF merchandise needs. And we have a pretty nice house for tonight's stream against Marlins, going up against the Cincinnati Reds, and we'll be 4 game set. So we'll keep that in mind as we head late into the show and into prediction time. But of course, I'm your host, Daniel. We have Kevin, we have Nate, we have Isaac, we have Eli joining us from 5 Reasons Sports, Mr. Eric Whitaker. Eric, it's great to have you on. I think you're making your FOF stream debut tonight.
I sure am. Happy to be here. Excited to talk a little bit of Marlins baseball here as we get set up for a 4-game series against the Reds.
Yep, and instead of starting off with the previous series in which the Marlins did lose that against the Brewers, let's go ahead and talk about some positive note, and that is first-time All-Star Kyle Stowers being the Marlins representative in the All-Star game. And I would be the first to tell you, I could probably say this on behalf of FOF, that if you told us this in the beginning of the year, if you told us right after spring training that Kyle Stowers would be the Marlins All-Star, we probably would have said you were crazy, because we were not high on Kyle Stowers coming out of spring training, but he has turned all of our minds around him to the point where he is easily the Marlins' best player in the first half of the season. Eli, talk to us about Kyle Stowers, him being the Marlins representative, and also in a year where the Marlins realistically could have had a couple.
Yeah, well, they had a couple of guys. Part of that was Stowers. He scared us in the middle of this first half where he had that all of a sudden his numbers plummeted. He was battling a hand soreness issue, but it turns out that was the anomaly. Really, a switch flipped ever since the regular season started from opening day. And then he was just so consistent throughout that first month of the season, even before the power showed up. And then the power showed up at the end of April and then throughout a good chunk of May. That's been the biggest difference maker with him. The fact that he's among the league leaders in barreling the ball. He doesn't look it. He doesn't look like a guy that should be doing it at the same rate as Ohtani and other top home run hitters in the league. But statistically, he has reached a point where mechanically he is in just such a great spot of being able to drive the ball, whether it's down the right field line or just as often hitting it to left center field and it being able to hit it well enough for extra bases, that he just had this awesome first half in a way that, if you want to be completely blunt about it, if not for the rule about every team needing an all-star selection, I don't know if he would have made it in, just because the National League outfield is super deep this year with a lot of deserving candidates. The most notable snub was Juan Soto. And if you look at the stats side by side, I think Juan Soto had the better overall first half. But Stowers got off to a much better start to this season, and he was in the middle of a couple iconic moments between opening day, between the Mason Miller walk-off grand slam against the A's. I think, to me, that is still the most powerful individual play of this entire Marlins season so far. And that was him like flipping a game around all by himself in a way that is really important for setting that narrative. For him to make this progress after being a really bad Major League Baseball player last year is something that you just don't see very often and should be celebrated. It's just a really great story. We can split hairs between whether or not how he ranks among the best players in the league this year and what exactly this looks like moving forward. But the fact that he's even done this is such a huge accomplishment for a guy that was even overshadowed within his own trade that he was acquired in, taking second fiddle to Connor Norby. And the way that he's performed now for a pretty significant stretch of time, it's extremely exciting. It has created a lot of good problems for the Marlins to have when you look at how they're going to fill out this outfield moving forward. When you look ahead to the trade deadline, he certainly deserved this as much as any other Marlins player did. So I'm just happy that they were able to find room for him on that roster.
I want to keep the conversation going. Kevin, talk to us. Kyle Stowers also. I want to get everyone's thoughts, or everyone who at least wants to speak about it. Just Stowers getting the All-Star nod. And you know, we have some people in the chat also saying maybe Edward Cabrera, but like Eli said, he was probably more in tune with them MLB selecting an outfielder and Stowers meeting that role.
Yeah, I think you kind of said it best, Daniel. Like, if you would have asked us who would be the Marlins All-Star at the start of the season, probably would not have been Kyle Stowers. It probably would have said Sandy, X, who knows. But honestly, if you had even asked Kyle Stowers himself, he probably would have told you he didn't even know if he was making the team out of camp. And that was something that he kind of shared with us, pre-game on Sunday when he was originally told he would be making the All-Star team. That it was coming down to the final days of spring, and he wasn't really sure if he would even be making the roster. Not that he was panicking, because he knew he was doing good stuff in the cage and his work outside of, I guess, the games themselves. But the fact that he made the team and everyone doubted him. I mean, I think I put the poll that we did right before opening day on the article. Us here at Fish on First were really not surprised that he made the roster, but a little like, we're wondering how long the leash would be or how short the leash would be. And it was kind of like an FU moment on opening day, walking it off. And after that, FU after FU with how he was playing. And then Eli noted it, like one of the most impressive at-bats of the season, the Mason Miller walk-off. You got to give him credit. He's worked hard. And I think a lot of people need to remember, like, this was the secondary piece in the Trevor Rogers trade. This was the guy that, was kind of just a throw in. The Orioles really weren't high on him anymore, essentially a DFA candidate at that point. And they just threw him over to the Marlins and said, work with this. And he got to Miami and he was not good. Like, he was terrible. And he was the only piece on the Marlins trade, flurry of trades that actually ended up being called up that same, starting his, I guess, that second half of the post-trade deadline season with the Marlins. So credit to him, credit to the work him and the coaching staff has done. Him and Clayton both going to represent the Marlins in the actual All-Star game themselves. Obviously, we know about Thomas and Noel and Joe Mack representing the Marlins on the Futures game. So pretty decent amount of Marlins out there in Atlanta this next weekend.
Yeah, I think you have to be really happy for a guy like Stowers. I mean, obviously, you guys kind of hit it on the head. Struggled immensely last season. Wasn't sure if he was going to be, on the roster where he stood kind of in the long-term plans within the organization. And he's just completely turned it around. And, I get the point about, like, yeah, the Marlins had to have one All-Star, but if you really look at it and you just look at the roster in its entirety, just taking a look at the stats, it's not even like I wouldn't say he's the 26th man on the roster either by any means. Like, there are some other guys that, teams are like, oh, well, Soto should have made it over this player. Kyle Stowers might not be, the lowest guy on that barrel there. So I don't necessarily think that this is just like the Marlins have to have somebody. This is also, he definitely did deserve it.
So who is the lowest guy on the All-Star poll?
I mean,
with all due respect to Kyle Stowers, it's Kyle Stowers.
No.
If you're just going off of it, well, no, okay. Tatis has there's other things that he does. Besides
Tatis has struggled. I think that if the Rockies did not need one, I don't think Hunter Goodman would have been.
He's been great.
I mean, one thing that threw a wrench into this was Acuna being a fan-elected starter, even though he barely played. And
that's true.
Now, when he played, he was amazing.
Yeah.
But if you had it all together, you'd have to say that all these other position players, all these other outfielders, certainly even Stowers was like more impactful overall just because of the volume of his workload, whereas Acuna only played, off the top of my head, 40 games or so, maybe a little bit more than that.
35 games when he got elected to be the starter. That one was insane to me that he, like, with all due respect to him because he's a great player, but like he had no reason to be an all-star starter at all. Like, there's guys more deserving of that honor than Ronald Acuna, but they needed someone to represent Atlanta, I guess.
Yeah,
started.
If you want to look at pitchers too, I mean, you could go Clayton Kershaw, but I don't think that really counts as an all-star nod. It's more of a commissioner's pick. Maybe it could be going towards maybe him retiring in the next year or so. But yeah, there's a lot of guys. I mean, isn't Chris Sale's injured, right? He's injured right now. He's not going to play, so that's another opportunity they open.
I want to just pump in because for people that are wanting to see Edward Cabrera rewarded for his stretch of consistency, there's the injury aspect to it. It's also any of these starting pitchers, if they make a start on Sunday before the All-Star game, they're even lined up to make that start on the Sunday before, they get scratched from the roster and they add somebody else who's available to pitch without, disrupting their actual regular season throwing. So I have not looked far enough ahead to know how many of these guys may be lined up to start the Sunday before, but there's potential for multiple new last minute additions to that staff. It might be stretched still that Eddie gets in there. There's some other pitchers.
Edward pitches on Friday, so
yeah. So Edward himself is going to be available to pitch in that no matter what. So just something to stay tuned for just in case, because he's had his first half has been just as remarkable, just considering how badly it started and what he's turned into. And of course, that was one of the highlights of this past series is him yet again going 7 strong innings against a good team.
Right now, for at least the NL, Freddie Peralta is lined up to go that Sunday, and that's really it for the National League.
Yeah, well, just to I guess I want to confirm that if, let's say, Stowers struggles that he endured, I guess, from late May to early June, where his OPS was below 400 for a good 3-week stretch, are we for sure? I guess, there's no other candidate that would have been the second choice to be the All-Star, right? Edward Cabrera was the number 2 guy on, I guess, the players' voting list, right?
I think
Dane kind of screwed himself up. Not screwed himself over. He just started playing bad.
Right. Yeah.
That's what hot streak wasn't enough.
Dane is, as we look forward to the rest of the season, he's in an interesting spot because people were so excited about how well he's playing overall for a decent stretch of time and demanding that he gets more playing time, being an everyday guy. He becomes an everyday guy. And this happens a lot with players where they feel like they're so deserving of getting an increased role or a promotion of some kind, and then they come back down to earth a little bit. So with him, I think it's fair to say that all of a sudden his performance is looking a lot like it did the previous 2 years, which is fine, but it's nothing that it's a different stratosphere than all these all-stars, for example.
Yeah, we could keep talking about are there any, while we have this roster on here, are there any maybe people you thought shouldn't be named to the All-Star on both leagues while we have this here? Maybe some snubs while we have their All-Star rosters on our front?
Trey Turner, he'd been awesome this year. Probably should have made it. I'm guessing Brendan Donovan's the Cardinals representative. So
Jazz should not have been an All-Star. Brendan Donovan, without the league requirement, shouldn't have been an All-Star. There's a couple of names you can go through. I don't think Kyle Stowers is the worst. He's not even close to being the worst one there. I think even without the requirement, he probably sneaks in there with his overall offensive numbers. So
he's pretty close to the bottom.
I don't think so.
So who is?
I mean, you could have Seiya Suzuki above Stowers. He probably should be starting the game.
And Suzuki and Soto would be the 2 outfield options that I would be very.
Turner also should be there clearly. He's been awesome.
James Wood should be starting. That's my
Andy Baez.
That was the worst. Yeah, exactly.
James Wood should be starting. And I guess just
he should be starting over Acuna.
Right that I still have from 22 is that Clayton Kershaw, obviously legend of the game. I'm still upset that Sandy did not get that start in Dodger Stadium. I know it's 3 years old now, but that still does boil my blood a little bit. And now here we go again, getting the commissioner pick to be in the All-Star game. But no offense to Lewis or Clayton himself. But,
Lewis first over Clayton.
Sorry, Lewis, but it's something I can point out.
I don't know why the Phillies industry is so. Trey Turner is having an okay season, right? By no means is he an All-Star this year. I know he leads the National League in hits, but his OPS is just over 800. I think the 2 main guys you can be upset about are Soto, just because the name. It's good for baseball that Juan Soto's in that All-Star game. I still think there's a chance he gets in, as well as Suzuki. But Trey Turner, give me a break.
Yeah, one thing I do want to note, we should mention that Jazz is an all-star with the Yankees. Now that was kind of a divisive pick because he did miss a significant time due to injury. He also his defense is a little hit or miss at third base, but we like to just forget about all these guys that get traded away, and he's one of the ones that is having about as much success as he did towards the end of last season when he was traded over. So congrats to Jazz, and I think both sides are pretty happy with that trade so far.
Yeah, I don't think he really deserved it, but whatever.
No, Jazz is very happy about that trade.
Yeah.
Dude, that guy just sucks too much.
All right. All right, Kevin. Let's go to the next topic. Let's just go ahead and review this last series, Marlins scoring against the Brewers, before we head on and talk a little bit about the Reds and some more topics to discuss, including the Baseball America Top 100, which I know Kevin is itching to talk about. But first, Marlins did fall the Brewers 2-1. A lot of hit or miss this series. We haven't really heard that much from Nate. I want to hear Nate's thoughts about this series against the Brewers. Just, relatively low scoring that second half of that series, but that first game, maybe the Marlins really got it going. But what do you think overall about this series against the Brewers?
Yeah, like you said, not too much offense outside of the fitting fireworks show that was on the 4th of July. Obviously, Otto came through with that really big shot, and Connor Norby kind of got off the schneid going opposite field as well. That was nice to see. I guess I'll talk about Saturday the most as I was there. Not too much, but the two things that did stand out was the bullpen after Cal departed. Josh Simpson, late Bodger got his first career save. Ronnie was in there as well, I believe. Yeah, I think that might have just been it. But another amazing performance from this bullpen, who's kind of just a bunch of guys that you don't really know much about, a lot of waiver claims, and they've come in and been, for the most part, stellar this entire season. And it really kept off with late Bodger's first career save. I know his teammates love that for him, so happy to see. And then offense, again, not too much going on. Then Augustin Ramirez comes up with bases loaded, 2 outs in the 8th, and he has ice in his veins, man. What can I say? That guy's an incredible player. Continues to do it for the Marlins. I know we just talked about Jazz being an all-star, but I think the Marlins are going to get the better return in this trade in the long run. He's an incredible guy. And yeah, he was really huge this series as well. So yesterday, Brandon Woodruff made his first start in almost 2 years and just had spectacular command, absolutely shut the Marlins down. I'll probably leave that to Kevin. I know he was there, but it was pretty just ridiculous to watch a guy that lost a lot of velo on the Marlins, whose offense was amazing a week ago on the road. They just couldn't touch him outside of Heriberto Hernandez, who had 2 hits and a home run. So overall, they just ran into a good team, and not much really you can be too disappointed about it, except for maybe a little bit more offense on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, and Nate, like, I think this was noted on the Spaces by Eli. Like, Woodruff had not been great in that last rehab start against Jacksonville. So the fact that he went in there, shut down the Marlins the way he did. Unfortunately, I think Cabrera is overshadowed by Woodruff just because it's the return of him and what he did. But Cabrera was awesome too. Like, phenomenal start for him. Unfortunately, long ball got him there. But aside from that, like, he was great. 7 innings, back-to-back starts where he goes 7 innings. First time in his career he does that. Didn't walk anyone for the first time this season. So he just continues to be awesome. And unfortunately, the Marlins bats just weren't good. There's no other way to say it. But I think this is an awesome series overall. Like, all 3 games were fun. There's no other, like, I think that's the best way to put it. Like, this team continues to compete with really good teams. Like, Milwaukee's a good team. Like, coming into this series, I know they had lost, I think, 3 out of 4 against the Mets. Like, that's a good team. They're playing good baseball, and they're, it's been a good season so far for the Brewers, and the Marlins continue to play good baseball. And all of a sudden, the Marlins find themselves in an interesting situation going up against Cincinnati, who haven't been great, and Baltimore, who's been one of the biggest disappointments in baseball.
And one more thing I'll add, the crowds every day,
Yeah.
especially on Friday, but Saturday too was electric in there, and Sunday as well. So it's good to see people starting to show up. Augustine even touched on after the game. He said, this is what we wanted all year, and for them to finally be in the seats and we're giving them a good show. It's great to see, especially for a team that young. It's awesome.
And that's what I was going to say about the Brewers, and to echo what Kevin was saying, that this team, I'm not just saying this because they took 2 out of 3 against the Marlins, but this team, especially the back end of their bullpen, it's a really impressive ball club. And they did go into Miami facing a red hot Marlins team, and really, they took 2 out of 3. This is a team that I think is a dark horse team to go deep into October, considering how their season ended last year. Their back end of their bullpen, everyone throws 100+. Even their lefty, Aaron Ashby, was really impressive. That back end of that pen really impressed me a lot. All 3 games, he dominated the Marlins lineup, except for that Friday game. Miami almost got to McGill, but this is a really good team that it was really nice to see the Marlins keep it all 3 games competitive.
And I think his name is Uribe, like the reliever.
Uribe,
for
102,
101, 102, like, it's impressive.
Ashby, incredible curveball, 99 from the left side. It's ridiculous what Pat Murphy has to deal with. To go along with Woodruff coming back, it's going to be. I think this team goes at least to the DS.
Yeah, old friend Christian Yelich returning as well.
He stole a hit from. I don't know if we could consider it a steal, but he stole a hit in that Sunday game from
Norby.
Norby, yeah, like that would have been huge, but. Yeah, and he's barely played the field all season too. And shout out to Nate for the awesome article on Yelly. So yeah, Brewers are a good team, and I agree with Isaac. That's a dark horse team, and they'll be making some moves at the deadline to add to their team.
getting Brendan Woodruff was huge for them.
It's kind of rare that you say that a series featuring the Marlins kind of has like a playoff feel to it. But that was the first time that I've watched the Marlins in a while, and I felt like at least, especially Friday and Saturday, that it was like playoff quality baseball, because it was two teams that, even when the starters may not have had everything, that the managers would have wanted from them, they were able to go to their bullpens early, and the bullpens were just absolutely shut down on both sides. Both teams kind of traded places with each other, getting to the other team's bullpen, kind of back and forth through the series. But again, it's good growth by the Marlins. You want to see the bats kind of get a little bit more consistent here. But, it's a 162 game season. You're not going to stay hot, especially not as hot as they were over the last 15, 16 games, through the entire year. It's going to happen at some point. And you ran into a Brewers team that's got some really, really good pitching. And credit to Brandon Woodruff, too. It's not just that the Marlins couldn't hit. I mean, he was hitting his spots all day long there. He was putting it pretty much wherever he wanted.
Yeah, let's finish off on the other side of that pitching matchup. Eli, can you talk a little bit about Eddie? Because even in that loss, he still went out there and went 7 innings. The Marlins going to hit Brandon Woodruff, but it was still a really solid start from Eddie to go 7 innings against a playoff caliber team like the Brewers in that lineup.
The only 2 runs he allowed on that Connor Norby kind of questionable play. It didn't go down as an error, went down as an infield hit that extended that inning on a ball that it looks like Otto was in position to field it himself, and it would have been an easier play for him. And that play was actually called an out on the field originally. The Brewers had to challenge it and get it overturned. So it's an interesting what if the Brewers don't feel like taking the chance on a challenge that early in the game, and how it goes from there. And if not for that, well, yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe Churio hits a home run in the next inning, or maybe they just don't score. Maybe it's a scoreless 7 innings or so from Edward right there. So it has been this extremely long run of consistency at this point. We're talking about more than 2 full months where he really has not had a bad outing. 2 full months, over a third of the season, where every time out it's somewhere between okay to brilliant, and there's nowhere below that, in a way that is rare for even like aces, even for real top level guys. The consistency is totally unprecedented for somebody like him, that in a way that you can't help but be impressed. In this game, he didn't even have like his best velo or his best stuff overall in this one, and yet he still was hyper efficient, almost as efficient as ever at any point so far this season. So it's really encouraging. All you can do is just fingers crossed that he stays healthy and makes all of his scheduled starts, so that nothing interrupts whatever rhythm that he's in right now. It's come with, I need to double check this. I feel like it's come with there's no like common thread here, where I think he's working with all 3 of these catchers at various points as well. So we can't even nitpick that. I want to just pull up the splits right here, where it's been mostly working with Gus, but occasionally with Fortes as well, where you just got to give most of the credit to him. He's faced so many different opponents at this point, and a lot of them that are good quality opponents that beat you in different ways. This Brewers team, I was kind of concerned about this matchup, because this is a team that runs very aggressively and very efficiently, and this is still a weakness in Eddie's game. He does not contain the running game. He's still slow to the plate. He doesn't slide step whatsoever. And if he's mainly going to be throwing to Gus, then the chances of catching Gus is not somebody that can really make up for a pitcher that's slow to the plate. So this was a situation where if he was anything worse than great, and they had enough base runners, that eventually it was going to come back to bite him. And it didn't, just because he didn't allow very many base runners in the first place. So I am extremely impressed with him. I remain very stubbornly on the train of wanting to get out of the Edward Cabrera business if there's an opportunity to do so that brings the Marlins back a lot in return. So I feel like I can balance those things while acknowledging that he has reached a new level of performance, but at the same time, it's so hard to trust just because of his mixed track record of durability that he's had throughout his career, and the mixed track record when it comes to strike throwing. There's only so much stickiness when it comes to command, even within a single season, and especially from one year to the next. So as awesome as it is that he's found something, there's still that larger sample that says he struggles to throw strikes where he wants to. So it is going to be, at this point, it is, I would say it's close to overtaking Sandy. Not quite yet, but it's close to overtaking Sandy as the biggest trade deadline storyline, because it feels like his value should be higher right now than even Sandy's is. And even if he's not a Cy Young winner in the past and he's not going to be a Cy Young winner in the future, he's still a really big piece of their team's success right now in a way that you can make strong cases one way or the other in terms of what they should do with him moving forward now that he's had this breakout of sorts.
Yeah, and just like to piggyback, like Cabrera probably is now maybe the best starting pitcher on the trade market. Like Gallen hasn't been good. Kelly hasn't been good. Mitch Keller's all right. He just has a lot of years on the contract. He's a little more expensive. Sandy, we know what we've seen from Sandy. Like in a seller's market, Cabby can garner a pretty great haul. Like especially how he's been pitching recently. And if the Marlins sell him off now, like just a bit before the deadline, like maybe they should do that. Maybe they should let this final start against the Orioles before the All-Star break, see what happens there. But that's one thing I wanted to note. The other thing I wanted to note is Lake Bacher. I know Nate's going to write about him. I think it's 6 straight scoreless outings for Lake Bacher. Got the save. So he's been like, this is a dude who's been up and down all season, but like he's finally back on this track where he's really good and really dominant. So shout out to Lake Bacher. Figured he deserved it. And they're probably going to continue to use him a lot, especially if they trade a couple of these relievers. Like they're going to continue to use Bacher a lot this season. So just wanted to mention him. And I know Eli, there it is. Your team is drowned in Lake Bacher. One of the better memes we've done at Fish on First, I would say.
Now that you mentioned Eddie, we mentioned Kyle Stowers. Do you guys want to go a little bit in some trade talk before you head into the top 100?
Sure.
Well, the Marlins winning so many games as of late. Maybe some people might have thought, hey, maybe they could be potential buyers. 8 games back. There are 7 games from the All-Star break. They win all of those games. Only 1 game under 500. But again, with that little winning streak, the Marlins could also have increased the value of their players. You look at Kyle Stowers, but he has a lot of future control. Eddie, Sandy has been up and down. I want to start with Nate. Who are some players that you think are locked to get traded by the Marlins? Or if they even are going to start trading, and maybe they're going to be small buyers if they really do like that team.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the buyer possibility, and I'm not sure about the amount of locks either. I think on this team, with the man you see on the left side of your screen, Peter Bendix, you never know what he's going to do. He mentioned it on MLB Radio yesterday. They're always having conversations, so who knows who's a lock and who's not. But I would say, excluding Sandy and Eddie, I believe that they're going to trade one of those 2 guys. I don't know which one it's going to be right now. I'd say right now I'm leaning Eddie just because how up and down. We all know the Sandy experience from this year. On the position player side, I'd say the safest guy to get traded is Jesus Sanchez, running out of time with his years of control, having a really good year, still pretty horrible against lefties, but he's been really good at the plate this year. Just missed a couple home runs this past homestand, so he's heating up just in time for the end of July. Can't forget about Anthony Bender on the reliever side. I think he is probably 1 foot out the door as well. So those 2 are probably my safest bets. But when you're dealing with a lot of chips that are just so young and you don't know what direction you want to go in, I don't think you want to move Ronnie Henriquez right now. That guy could be a closer of the future, just like we saw with Tanner Scott, maybe even save him for maybe a year or 2 down the line if you want to move him. But I think on the older side, those 2, and Bender and Sanchez, are probably the safest. Move him to a contender, get some pieces back, and then figure it out from there.
Yeah, the thing with the relievers is just interesting because they're so volatile. Like Ronnie Henriquez could be great, and then next year he could be trash. Like as simple as that. Like I feel like they should sell off as many guys who you think will be at the peak of their values. And now again, this kind of feels like what last year was with Fauché and Cronin. Like, are they going to trade those guys who they got themselves off of waivers or whatever, of trade, whatever it even was? I think Fauché was the trade. Like, there's different ways they could go about it. Maybe that's how they feel like maybe that's their feeling with Henriquez. Like, we got this guy and we developed him to be a stud. Like, as Nate noted, like, this is a legit this is their closer right now. Like, as much as Clayton doesn't want to admit it, he's been their closer for the parts of the last 2 weeks. So they could do that. But like, I think, and just to like clarify the buyer thing, like they would have to sweep Cincinnati and they would have to sweep Baltimore. Like they're not going to do that. That's the only way I could see them buying at this deadline.
Yeah,
I think it's out of the
It
They're not
is
possibilities.
such a long season. What I'll say is, at a bare minimum, they need to win this Reds series at least 3-1, because this is one of the many teams that is ahead of them
Yeah.
in the pecking order. You just take it one series at a time. But at the very least, anybody that's having delusions about them sticking around this race, they got to win this particular series, and we'll see if they do. But they are at least in that area where that's why these decisions are waiting until after the All-Star break, just to be completely sure one way or the other. I should just remind people that the only guy on their roster that is a pending free agent is Cal Quantrill. I don't think he has much value at all, but the thing is, it's all relative to what else is out there and how many other decent, usable starting pitchers there are that are available on selling teams. And Quantrill, it's not the same as Eddie, but if you, again, like him, if you chop out the month of April, then you get an ERA that's under 4 with him. And one reason it's under 4 is because they don't push him deep into games whatsoever. And I personally, I wouldn't. It's just hard to see exactly where he fits in a puzzle of a team that's trying to contend right now. But if they're cool with just using him like 2 times through the order and out, and if a team that feels it has a really deep bullpen that can cover up for him, then there's some value there, I guess. A guy that also has bullpen experience in his career as well. If he gets booted out of a rotation, he can kind of pitch in and relieve in some situations for his new team. So, I mean, the thing is that it's an unsexy topic because I don't see a situation where they get anything real in return. You can dump his remaining salary, which really isn't that much. It's like $1.5 million from now through the end of the year. You save some money. You could get just one of those rookie level prospects that nobody's ever heard of. Maybe
that's something, though.
It's something, yeah, and that's why they'll try to shop him. So, in my opinion, I feel like the most likely scenario with Quantrill is that they don't find any takers for him at the deadline. He stays around. He kind of keeps his seat warm for Robbie Snelling, who just got promoted to AAA. Congrats to him. But he keeps his seat warm. And then towards the end of the year, they're still in the month of August and even in September, you can move guys on waivers. There are guys that maybe a team down the stretch, the deadline has passed. They're panicking. They need somebody to fill innings. I'm sure there is going to be teams interested in Quantrill filling some spot on their pitching staff down the stretch. I'm skeptical of them actually getting anything in return. So I need to bring him up just because I'm sure the team is going to be looking to move him. But we're coming down to the wire, and unless he just blows everybody away his final few starts before the deadline, I don't think there's going to be a ton of value there.
I think the recent play of this team could also tell you let's do a limited sell. Like we'll sell a couple guys, like obviously Quantrill. You'll sell a couple other guys, but stay prepared for 2026 and load up a little bit for that season. Obviously, I don't think they'll compete in 2026, but maybe they'll make it more interesting than we think. I don't think anyone thought this team would have 40 wins right now. Probably a lot less than that. So I don't know. I could see that being the case where it's like a soft sell with a couple of guys. But who knows? I mean, all of a sudden this team loses 4 against Cincinnati, and who knows after that, and it all goes downhill after that. But who knows? Maybe it could be a quiet sell, and you load up for next season. But who knows? We'll see what they do within the next week. I think this is a huge week of games for the Marlins. It's 2 teams that they should be able to not comfortably beat, but they should have a good shot at. I mean, Baltimore's been a massive disappointment. Yeah, that too.
Oh, we'll get to that, Downlock. We're going to get to that.
You know, my thing with the Marlins and what they've done is as impressive as it's been, and as much as they've exceeded expectations, the messaging from the front office has always been really consistent throughout this entire build in terms of what they want to do. And I'm really not of the opinion that they've been moved very much by what they've seen on the field. Now, maybe in individual cases, sure, but I would still have them pegged as moderate sellers. I don't think it's going to be a fire sale by any means, but I think you could be looking at maybe anywhere from 4 to 6 players on the 26-man roster who aren't with the team past the trade deadline between.
That's a fire sale.
Well, I mean, is it really a fire sale if it's just a couple bullpen arms, Quantrill, Sanchez? I mean, I don't think they're gonna touch like anybody that you're like, oh wow, I can't believe they traded this guy. Like I don't think Kyle Stowers is getting moved.
No.
You know, I don't think. I mean, obviously they're not going to touch Augustine Ramirez. They're not going to touch Yuri Perez. You know, I think it's going to be a moderate sell. I think, you know, two of your bullpen arms. I think Valente Belloso is a guy that might have sneaky value as a guy that's gone multiple innings out of the bullpen and been pretty good in that role. Because, I mean, honestly, if you're going to sell a team on Quantrill, why wouldn't they just ask you for Belloso instead? So I think you're probably looking at, you know, mostly pitchers being moved at this deadline, but definitely a moderate sell.
I did mention catchers before. We'll go to Eli here. Maybe we'll save the catcher one for someone here in specific, but mostly Eric brought up Jeezy. We haven't brought up Jeezy yet until right now in terms of someone that could potentially get traded. Do you see Jeezy as someone that teams will be calling for, or is maybe his value coming on?
So I do think that he's somebody that, given the makeup of this team right now, he's a pretty obvious candidate to be moved, even though he has a couple of years of club control. They have so many outfield internal options that are interesting in various ways. We've touched on Stowers obviously being one that is kind of in an everyday role for the foreseeable future. And with Dane, it's been up and down, but it's been mostly up this year. And the upside, the fact that he's been able to hold his own in center field defensively has been a big development in a way that's important. You have this whole wave of guys right beneath them. You still have Victor Mesa Jr. He's on the 40-man roster, and we saw a glimpse of him already. You have the guys that are not even on the 40-man yet that are knocking on the door, most noticeably Jacob Marcy. Jacob Marcy, the power that he's been hitting for over this last couple months of the season, I did not see coming. And that's a really interesting development to go along with somebody that also leads the Marlins organization in stolen bases. There's Andrew Pintar, who just landed on the IL, but hopefully he'll be back in the relatively near-term future, who might be the best defender out of all these guys and might be the fastest, just in terms of straight line speed, the fastest of all these outfielder players as well. He's in AAA, and he's been doing solidly for a chunk of this year after being red hot early on in the season. You have Kemp Alderman, who I don't think is all that far away from getting a promotion to AAA himself if they had room for him to play over there. He hits the ball as hard as anybody. His exit velos are right there with Augustine, and yet he does it. He fits his defensive position a little bit better. I'd say he even has a better ability to drive the ball in the air to the opposite field that gets you really excited. I mean, Kemp is somebody that, even if we don't see him in the big leagues this year, should definitely see him at some point next year, health permitting. So there's just a lot of mouths to feed when you even consider Griffin Conine coming off the IL next year. And we think that he showed some really legitimate steps that he took as an overall player before his injury. There's a lot of these guys that are cheaper than Sanchi for one, and ones that I don't think there's a big drop off in terms of like overall production. Some of them are going to flop because that's just the nature of the beast. But can you get three, you can like paste them together and get three good full-time outfield spots out of that whole group that I just mentioned, you probably can in a way that definitely makes Sanchi available. So I touched on this on our spaces last night, that the thing is there's still a disconnect between the batted ball data of Jesus Sanchez and the actual production that he puts up, in a way that his value on the market would depend on what the acquiring teams care about, because the baseline numbers are not that exciting. It's a little bit better than an average hitter, and it's a guy that only does that when he's facing right-handed pitching. So it's a solid platoon option. But the underlying stats say that there's a lot more in the tank, that there should be legitimate plus power in there, even though in games itself it kind of comes and goes in terms of how often it actually leads to home runs. If there's a team that believes that at some point a switch is going to flip and he's going to consistently be able to crush balls 470 feet the way that he has at times on and off as a Marlin, then maybe they're willing to give up more. I think it's likely that he gets moved just because they have all these other internal options. But at the same time, I would for the moment, I don't have a great feel in terms of what his value would be, just because there still is that disconnect between the underlying data and the numbers that he's putting up. The numbers that he's putting up are meh. They're not going to get teams salivating. It really takes one of those teams to buy in that there's another level of performance in there in order for the Marlins to get a return that actually gets people fired up and makes a significant dent to their farm system quality.
I think there might be an argument to be made in terms of just his overall value. I've always felt this way about Sanchez, even though I finally resigned myself to trading him. I never wanted to, because I always felt like he was going to be a guy that if the Marlins ever did trade him, he's going to hit 310 in the second half with like 15 homers with some other team. That was always kind of how I felt. I think there's a pretty good argument to be made when you pair the batted ball skills with the baseline numbers that this is maybe the floor of a guy like Sanchez is kind of what you're getting right now. Granted, I think we've seen some of when it gets bad, it gets really bad with some of the swing decisions and things that you see like that. But I think his overall production right now is kind of an aggregate at the floor of what you're going to see for Sanchez. So I can see some teams' scouting department kind of banging the table for him in kind of a we can fix him kind of way.
And going from Jeezy, let's talk a little bit some prospects before we head out here and even start talking about this Red Series. Baseball America just released their newest top 100, including some 3 Marlins players in that list, including Joe Mack, Thomas White, and who I mentioned before, Mr. Robbie Snelling. Kevin, talk to us about this top 100 list. What do you like? What don't you like? And just really the list you really see from the Marlins side.
Can you pull up the list? And then I will provide.
I know Thomas White is ranked 25, so they're very highly ranked. They're very highly regarded in terms of Thomas White.
Well, are we looking at the top 30?
Top 30. Oh, excuse me. Oh, that's dumb.
Yeah, I mean, where do I start? I mean, Kova at 4 is pretty not insane to me, but like I just didn't see it coming. Like he's been good, but I don't think he's been number 4 good. But again, I think a lot of those lower level guys have really struggled this season. Mazur at 6. Baseball America has been high on Mazur for a very long time. They continue to be. I'm glad Robbie Snelling's at number 3. Could even make the argument for number 2 on the list, but we'll stick with that. They seem to really love Kevin DeFrank at number 5. He's one of the more polished players in the international class last year. He's been awesome so far. The velo's there. The stuff is there. I think this has got to be one of the higher rated relievers in Eknis, like at 13. That's cool to see. Kifrady Encarnacion is a guy who has been recovering from Tommy John, who hit 100 recently in the bullpen. I think I'd posted about that. Adrian Pena, another guy who was in this most recent international class. Kyler Benitez, like, I don't even know what to think about him anymore. He's been up and down from the FCL to low A. Like, that's been a weird one. I feel like Grant Pauly over Marcy is a bit interesting as well. Like, as good as Pauly has been since going back down to AAA, Marcy has been just on a completely other level. Could play all 3 outfield spots. Works, gets on base a lot, steals a lot of bases. Like, that's a good baseball player in Marcy. I know you don't think that, Nate, but it's okay. Marcy's been awesome in the month of June, off to an awesome start in July. He'll probably be called up pretty soon once the Marlins make all these trades. Nate Payne has been a very fun guy to watch in the Complex League. He's been very fun to watch along with Shepherdson. I know Shepherdson, I think, struggled big time today, but who else? Kemp Alderman, I feel like he should really be a little bit higher up on this list. He's been awesome this season. Pedro Montero's a name I've heard a lot of good things about. I've heard that he's probably the best player right now, the best pitcher in the Dominican Republic for the Marlins over, Paulino, DeFrank, all those guys. Outside of that, Gage Miller's been all right. Jacob Miller's been like having a quiet season. Like, he's been decent. And then Anthony Brea, I know our guy Alex Carr was pretty high on it, and he mentioned him in one of the most recent minor league recaps, and they really like him a lot too. And he was one of the better rated players coming out of the international class. I think it was part of that top 100 that MLB Pipeline did. So overall, decent list. I mean, obviously we have our own list, so we have our own thoughts. So I'm not going to totally agree with everything on here, but I think the top 3 speaks for itself. And I mean, Dylan Head that low is interesting to me still. Valor, I think, should still be a little bit higher. Acosta, he's been all right, so I think he's fine where he's at. Orlando, as high as he is interesting to me, but yeah, it's an overall fine list. I mean, Baseball America always has like there's certain guys that they really love, and that's why you see like names like Montero, Encarnacion, Adrian Pena as high as 12, Mazer. So I'm not gonna like fault them on that, but we obviously have our own thoughts.
Yeah, I think you hit on most of it. Two things first, I never said Jacob Marcy was a bad baseball player. I need to see more from him to be sold on him to be a major league regular. I will say that.
I mean, that's in a month of greatness.
So many guys have had great months. Whatever. Well, this is for another time. My stock on him has gone up, but I'm still not all the way sold on him yet. Sorry.
Hey, Pintar's injured too.
That's all right. Another guy that you missed that fell off the list is my guy Carter Johnson. This is a guy who I went to war for ever since he was drafted. I was very excited when he was drafted. I thought he could have been picked, even in the first round over PJ. Mm-hmm. And what do I know? He has been abysmal in Jupiter ever since he got there. He's doing even worse this year than he did last year in his first year, which was just a month or two in Jupiter. Hitting below the Mendoza line, has the 8th most strikeouts in all of single A with 94, just 2 above of his buddy Andres Valor with 92. It's good enough for 9th worst, but he's been like I said, downright pretty abysmal. To see him fall all the way off the top 30 is kind of shocking, but when you look at all the production, which is not much, it doesn't really come as too much surprise when you look at it like that. So tough to see, but obviously there's a lot of time. You never know, he'd have some Jacob Marcy type of resurgence, so we have to just wait and see on Carter Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, nothing too crazy. Again, BA has their certain guys that they like Kova. Like, they've loved Kova since the minute he signed, so that's why he's always been this high on their list. But just like they do, we have certain guys that we really like, and we rank a little bit higher. No Fenwick Trimble. That's the issue to me there. That's another issue. But again,
I would say
that was a recommended pick by someone. I'm not going to name him, but we put Fenwick there because he's been good, and he's also been hurt, so I don't blame him for not putting him in the top 30. But yes, Carter Johnson off the top 30 was certainly a choice. I personally wouldn't completely remove him from the top 30. And again, I wouldn't even blame him for the struggles too. Like, the fact that he's in low A as 19-year-old, like, that's insane. Like, they should have clearly put him down to the FCL, given him some time to work on his stuff, get back into a rhythm, and eventually get to low A again. I still don't understand why they have him at low A. He should clearly be in the FCL, where he would also play every day at shortstop. I don't think he's played every day at shortstop. Obviously, we have Kyle, we have Andrew Salas. Like, you have certain guys that are clearly going to play that position. I think the record isn't good, obviously, and that doesn't matter. But, like, these guys aren't playing great baseball in general. Like, a lot of guys have struggled. Salas is another guy who I think should also be in the FCL. He hasn't been good after a great start to the season. So, yeah, I think there's certain guys that clearly need to go down a level, just get it going again, make some adjustments and come back up, especially in that low A level. Like, that team should be a really good baseball team with the names that you see on that roster, but unfortunately it just hasn't worked out.
Yeah, not too much I see there. The only other thing that I would add is personally to me, I don't see the huge chasm between Noble Meyer and Carson Milbrandt at this point that Baseball America sees, with them kind of being 19 spots apart. But, you have the draft pedigree there.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I see every single list, and for some reason, nobody can separate Carson Milbrandt from Jacob Miller, who were drafted back to back in 2022. And they are the funny thing is they are very different pitchers. They have very different pitch mixes, and they're competing at different levels right now. Miller is in Pensacola, Milbrandt is still in Beloit, but we're the same way. Where, like, you just add up all the pros and cons, and you weigh all the factors involved in there, and they kind of are similar. Where I think, all things considered, it's a little bit underwhelming based on where they were drafted, but at the same time, both of them trending towards likely having some sort of big league role eventually, where they're good enough to consistently be on top 30 lists. We'll see where they stand once the draft passes and once the deadline passes. That'll be an interesting test, because both of them are, for the most part this year, they're just treading water. Where Miller is still mostly good outings, but then an occasional clunker, and then he still doesn't really miss as many bats as you would like. In Milbrandt, he misses bats, but he doesn't go as deep in the games, and you still have questions about his control, and he's still competing at the lower level. So I just think it's funny that they remain kind of attached at the hip, no matter who is trying to evaluate them.
I don't think they were picked back to back, but Shepardson and Payne also seem like they're going to be together for a while, at least according to Baseball America. Like those are two high school pitchers at the same level. I don't know. I kind of see that one too. And I think like for us, like we also have Marcy and Pintar together too. Like those are two very similar players. So I think those cases, I've been trying for a while on our list to separate Milburn and Miller, but it just doesn't seem to ever work. And Milburn continues to just, I don't know. He's an interesting pitching prospect. I think Miller's the better one personally. And I still have thought that for the last couple of times we've done our list. Unfortunately, that case has not gone by, but just Milbrand still being in high A. Yeah, he's repeated the level, 3 times now? So it's been interesting for him too. But injuries have certainly kept him back.
Mm-hmm. And we can go a little bit more talking about the draft and our upcoming streams. And of course, our draft stream coming up, which should be a lot of fun there, which is always one of our best streams of the year. But let's really quickly talk about this Red Series before we head into predictions. We can just look at these lineups, if these lineups for the Reds and the Marlins. Nate, well, first with the Marlins, I don't know if you've seen the lineup yet or as Eli is bringing it out. What really stands out to you, or really with this lineup, just more of the same with Clayton here as they're going up against Brady Singer?
Well, I think it's a lot of guys. I believe Ron mentioned it yesterday, guys that just need a day off. He touched on Dane, who has been, like you guys mentioned earlier, pretty bad recently, just probably needs a day. It's been a probably 2-week stretch of playing just consistently for that guy. So no really issue with that. Also, who else is taking a day today? Otto's taking a day, so that slots in Javier Sano hitting 9th. The big one to me is obviously Liam Hitch hitting cleanup. He's been awesome in clutch situations this year, one of the best on the entire team. So maybe if they get Dutch on the pond for him, especially that top 3, they can do what he does best and drive them in late in the game from other Marlins, patented late inning rally. So overall, don't really see too many issues with this. There's a lot of the same here. Derek Hill gets back in center after only starting, I believe, 1 time in this homestand after returning from the IL. Connor Norby still hitting 7th. I touched on it in the chat, in our chat yesterday, that similar to Eric Wagman, the way the broadcasters talked about Connor Norby and Eric Wagman, like they're turning a corner, or like they've been a revolutionary player on this team. Neither of them really have been. I'm perhaps too harsh on Wagman, who has hit a lot of doubles this year, which everyone seems to like pointing out. But Norby is not really turning a corner at all, to be honest with you. His swing and miss is still pretty egregious. He came in with the bases loaded, nobody out on Saturday before Gus came into almost to the bases, and he struck out in clutch. So still want to see a lot more from Connor, especially with how Kyle's been producing as of late, and obviously being named an All-Star. So a lot to be desired there. Just like Brian said, maybe a potential send down, but it's going to be hard to work that one out. Just something I want to, I think it's worth mentioning with a potential cornerstone in Norby.
Yeah, and just to hammer that home, this Marlins position player core overall is in pretty good shape at a lot of different positions for the near-term future. The biggest question marks at this point are those infield corners at first base and third base, and they have several internal candidates at both spots. I mean, at first base, they've already tried the Matt Mervis reclamation project. Since then, it's been a lot of Wagaman. Liam Hicks can fake it there, and of course, they have Davison De Los Santos at AAA trying to earn his way up. So they have candidates, and they can. Maybe there's a point in the near-term future where Gus shifts over to first base list on a part-time capacity. They have options there. At third base, if Norby doesn't work out, then we mentioned Graham Pauley is doing really well since his demotion. There's a lot of shortstops that can slide over to third base at some point in their development if they're blocked. Like if they feel good about Otto, then maybe Acosta slides over to third base at some point in the near-term future. But yeah, there's not an obvious answer at either of those spots right now. That's going to be, to me, once the deadline passes and all that fun gets out of the air, that's going to be one of the bigger down the stretch storylines about this team, is whether they can get a clearer answer at those positions.
Yeah, and I'm glad Nate mentioned the Norby thing. With Wagaman, like the underlying numbers seem pretty good, as you could see, a lot of red. We'll see what happens. Whatever. Norby, like, I think he needs to go down to AAA. With all due respect to Connor Norby, great guy, great clubhouse presence. But clearly something is just not working out for him up here. He is swinging at literally everything. He is striking out 27.7% of the time. He has the lowest walk rate on this team of these 9 players right now, because Augustin's is pretty low too, but whatever. Graham Pauley's swinging a good bat right now in AAA. Like, he's been on fire. Like, Graham Pauley could come up here right now, help this team, play every day, almost every day. Give Norby some time up until just after the All-Star break or whatever to see what he could do there, and then bring him back up. But like, unfortunately, just Norby has been a liability to this team. Like, there's no other way to put it. I mean, defensively, he's looked terrible too these last 2 weeks. Like, he made that play yesterday, had no reason to get in front of Otto on that play at third on Sunday's game, and thankfully got a home run the other day. But like, overall, it's unfortunate for him because he'd been so good last year with the Marlins, but the underlying numbers, unfortunately, were saying something else, and those underlying numbers came to bite him back, and unfortunately, he's now struggling. And I don't know. You could also make the case how much of it is just him playing third base, like maybe moving to second would help him out. Who knows? I don't know. But obviously you have X there, so you have to see what you do there. But yeah, I think I've said it before. I said it a couple weeks back. Maybe it's just time to give Norby a break in AAA, let him reset a little bit, get his mind right. Bring up Paulie, who's been on a heater, and give him an opportunity to help this team offensively.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where you do feel for Norby, because he was so hot when he first came over, and then he kind of tailed off at the end of the year last year, and it's kind of been the same thing. He got hurt to start the season this year, and he's just never really put it together. And you guys kind of hit it on the head, really. He just kind of seems like he's at the plate without a plan right now. The swing decisions are not good. He's not taking pitches that he really should be taking, and he's not even getting quality contact. I mean, that's the one thing that he could kind of hang his hat on before was, well, at least he was hitting the ball hard. He's not really even doing that right now, and that just kind of signals to me that yeah, Stanton Jacksonville is pretty needed for Connor right now.
Let's go ahead and look at this Reds lineup, because there are some pretty big names here, at least one big name that they do have, and a lot of blue. Eli, when we don't have a guest, I always feel like you're the resident guest in terms of talking about the other team. Talk to us a little bit about this Reds lineup, obviously with Ellie De La Cruz, and also I've seen a little bit Austin Hayes having a bit of a bounce back year as well.
They've been just a really streaky offense this year. They got off to a horrible start. There was that stretch in April where they may have been shut out 4 straight times. It was either 3.5 or 4 straight games or parts of 5 games. They've been really streaky because it's head scratching. They play in such a hitter friendly ballpark, especially when it comes to homers. Ellie got off to a pretty slow start as a hitter as well, and he has almost fully come around to that, where now he's on pace for the best offensive numbers of his career as a hitter, even though his stolen bases have actually come down a bit. So he's still the focal point of that lineup, but it's a pretty deep lineup when things are firing. Tyler Stevenson, really underrated catcher through the years, who missed a chunk of the season due to injury, but now he's back in there. If he's your number 7 hitter, you're in pretty good shape, all things considered. And TJ Friedl at the top of the lineup, he's somebody that overperforms those underlying batted ball metrics because he's just an extremely pesky hitter. He's built a lot like a Jacob Marcy type. I think the Marlins want Jacob Marcy to become a lot like Friedl, where he's just really pesky, hyper aggressive, and very disciplined. You see the walk rate at 11%. They have a few guys in this lineup that are really disciplined. Even Ellie this year, look at that. He's drawing walks at well above a league average clip so far. So the last piece of the puzzle to me would be Matt McLean fully recapturing the player that he used to be before his shoulder issues. They've moved him back to near the top of the lineup, but the production is still awful. It's still an OPS in the low 600s. It's just not getting on base or outside of home runs. He just has not been the overall hitter that they thought he is capable of being. So once he is, I think that just makes them even more fearsome as an offensive team. But yeah, they've been up and down, and as of late, they've actually been kind of down again. It's a team that hasn't fully put it together. They're a 500 team overall this year, a little bit, and I think the true talent is a bit better than that. It feels like more so this year. They've been led more so than anything by their starting pitching, and the Marlins are kind of lucky with the way that this lines up because Hunter Green they're not going to see Hunter Green in the series. They are going to see Andrew Abbott, and he's having an awesome year. When everything is available to them, though, they actually are a pretty good rotation on top of being a relatively deep lineup. And it's still a relatively young group. They cut my guy, Jamer Candelario, who was like one of their token veterans of this group. And otherwise, yeah, I guess Austin Hayes is the graybeard guy of this group, and he's only been around for maybe 5-6 major league seasons prior to this year. So yeah, they're not actually that much older than the Marlins are. In some ways, these teams are. There's some interesting parallels between where they're at, and the difference being that the Reds have that top tier superstar in the middle of everything, and the Marlins are still waiting for somebody to fully emerge as that kind of player.
I think this is also a great opportunity for someone like Ellie De La Cruz to bump up those stolen base numbers. He has 29.1 sprint speed. He is, and look who's behind the plate tonight. So this is a fast team. Like Benson, Marte, Spencer Steer, Matt McClain. Like this is a pretty fast team. So they may take advantage and steal a lot of bases. I think when they played them in Miami, they led Major League Baseball in stolen bases at the time. I don't know if that still stands. They do not lead Major League Baseball whatsoever in steals. They are 14th with 66 stolen bases. So not stealing as much, but that speed, you would think they would steal a lot more. And I guess this would be their prime opportunity this series if Augustine catches at least 2 out of the 3 games. My guess would be Fortes will catch at least 1, and Hicks as well. So yeah, I mean, this is a prime opportunity for Ellie, who definitely has to be up there in stolen base numbers this season. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's 22 stolen bases. So
just to take a peek at the probable starters for the series, they have since confirmed Cal Quantrill in that series finale. So yeah, we see this is going to be the last start of the first half for Sandy and Quantrill at the end of the series. Both Junk and Yuri should be going again one more time during that Orioles series this weekend. And I mentioned Abbott. I think as of this moment, I don't think he's on the All-Star roster yet. That seems like a formality.
Like All-Star.
Yeah,
we are under a weather delay.
And are we officially in a delay?
Yep. Reds just tweeted it.
Okay, so this has been. I think this has happened a couple times this year where we're doing a stream and they push back the start time anyway. So
hopefully it's not a Washington situation.
Right, the Washington one, that was multiple hours, right? Where
that was like 3 or 4 hour delay. That was insane.
Yeah, that was one where even us as a staff were struggling to stay up for the end of that one. Yes, so we do a rain delay here in
weather doesn't even seem that bad in Cincinnati. It'll probably be a short delay.
Yeah. So yeah, optimistic that the game is still going to get in, and you'd rather have it before the game than during it, just so that the starting pitchers themselves are not in risk of being yanked early and being screwed around. So tarp on the field right now. We'll keep you updated.
There'll be an update at 7.
Okay.
So less than 30 minutes.
Yeah. Sort of significant delay then, if they're not even going to remove the tarp until that time. But yeah, aside from that, I've mentioned it before. Do I have the just for shits and giggles? Do I have the wild card standings updated here? Yeah, just for people to look at.
I will say this, and this kind of goes back to what Krutchik said back in the Arizona series. Like, if the Marlins take 3 out of 4 or sweep the Reds, like the Reds are essentially done. Like that's what it feels like, at least. Like the Reds would be what they lose 4, they'd be 46 and 48. Marlins would hop up a couple, maybe a spot, or maybe jump the Diamondbacks. But yeah, I mean, this feels like one of those make or break series for the Reds if they want to stay in this. And right now they're in a position where they're obviously going to be buyers, or they should buy. So we'll see what happens. But I think what Krutchik said about Arizona falls into the same bucket as the Marlins. I mean, as the Reds.
There's the overall look right there. I think between now and the deadline, the Marlins have gone through with playing a lot of these teams already. So it's a lot on them to just keep on winning. 10-3 in their last 13 games. If it's 10-3 in their next 13, that's kind of what it's going to take to even be remotely interesting. They have to continue winning at that crazy clip in a way that I think is highly, highly doubtful, but that's why they play the games.
I mean, does 5 out of 7 leading into the All-Star break get you within 5 games of a spot? Probably, right?
Depending on what those other teams do, yeah. Depending on the Padres right now, them and the Giants essentially tied for that final wild card spot. Depending on what goes on with them, that would be it. But yeah. I remain of the opinion that they're in a spot where you're still going to you describe them as moderate sellers. I think as a baseline, there's going to be some sort of strategic selling with relievers that are that they feel they can replace internally. We didn't even talk about it on the stream, but we have on others about just they have nice relief arms in the upper minors that I think you can plug them in and actually expect good results. And I already went on my spiel about the outfield and how Sanchez being the one guy that's closest to free agency. And even though some people like him, I wouldn't call him a fan favorite. I think that some people like him a lot. Some people get frustrated by him. He's, for better or worse, he's been a big part of this team now for a full half decade. But he's another one where the production itself feels like is something that you can replace in the aggregate potentially. And if you could get decent young talent back in return, I think they're going to pull the trigger on that.
Well, if it is a doubleheader, you could see the 27th man. So
you're getting ahead of yourself.
Hey, you got to prepare for the worst.
Right. Well, with that being said, we have gone on long enough. It's time for the final segment of the show, prediction time.
This is prediction time.
I think we're going to win a lot of games, a lot more games than you think we're going to win this year.
If you say so, Bruce. Let us take an updated look at the leaderboard that we have. It is getting really tight at the top. Kevin now within 2 points of first place. Hector is actually our top performing staffer. But we keep track of predictions all season long from our staff, from our super subs, from our live stream guests as well. How many games the Marlins are going to win in this series and who's going to be the series MVP as determined by win probability added. It could be a player from either team. It could be a hitter or a pitcher for your MVP pick. So I will cue up the music right there. A reminder to our super subs that I guess because of the delay, you have even more time to get in your predictions if you want to on our website or in our Discord channel. An important detail about this series, it is a 4-game set. And you know how often these series, that opens up the possibility of a split that we don't ordinarily have with these series. But I will turn on the music and we'll start once. Gotta get the background up there. Background first, music second, and then Kevin's turn to go.
I'm going to go with Perez. Really encouraged with what I saw in his last outing against the Twins. Hopefully goes 6, enough to give me that more than enough for the series MVP, but I think the stuff is there. The control, everything was there in his last start. Everything was clicking. That was a good Minnesota lineup too, for the most part. And I think a similar lineup in the Reds, as good as Minnesota was. So, yeah, I'm feeling good about this series against the Reds. Marlins will find themselves 43 and 49, so 6 games under 500 at that point, and going to Baltimore feeling pretty good about themselves.
Okay, Nate Karsmer, your prediction, sir.
I'm also pretty confident as well. I'm going to go with the Marlins taking 3 out of 4, and I got to get creative. I am off the leaderboard, as just seen on the prediction time, so I'm going to go with the relief. I got Ronnie Enriquez getting more closing opportunities, going to be in a lot of high leverage. That guy's a beast. Series MVP.
Okay, Eric, you've seen how it's done. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to be the Debbie Downer and say that it's going to be a split. But my MVP will be a Marlin. I'm going to go with Jesus Sanchez. 364 over his last 9 games. Hit a ball to the track in the last game. Those balls go out in Great American Ballpark. I think he's going to have a big series.
I'll go with a series split as well. I usually do this when it's an even number of games. I haven't had a lot of practice this year with this template of series, but 2 wins apiece for the Marlins and the Reds. For series MVP, I'll go with Tyler Stevenson, who was on my fantasy team, and I got impatient with him, and I cut him, and now he's doing pretty decently. But he's one of those guys that gets in the lineup almost every single day, even as a catcher. They DH him a lot in Cincinnati, even on days when he's off. He makes he accrues a lot of plate appearances in ways that I think he flips probably one of these games with a pretty timely hit. And the Marlins split, keep themselves above water. Ultimately, the urgency is there to do a little bit more than that if they want to keep this fantasy alive. So I think ultimately a little bit of a dissatisfying outcome if they split it down the middle with Cincinnati, but I think that's the way it's going to go. Alrighty. FOF Live, hosted for the most part by Daniel, but at the end by me, Eli Sussman. Thank you to Eric Whittaker from 5 Reasons Sports Network for hopping on and talking ball with us, along with Nate and Kevin, and Isaac was there as well early on part of our show. Thanks for everybody tuning in as well. So we got one more first half stream coming up on Friday for the Orioles series, and then we're just counting the days till the MLB draft stream, because that's one of the highlights of our entire season of streaming, being able to bring that to you and covering it. We're locking in the final details. We think it's going to start right around the same time as the draft, around 6 p.m. on Sunday, to really close out the first half with a bang. Thanks everybody for keeping up with what we do, presented by About the Fans. Just go to aboutthefans.com and you find all our FOF merch over there, including some new additions that I think we're going to plug in during the All-Star break to give you even more variety of ways to rep the Marlins, rep FOF, and support what we do and keep us going. So that being said, thanks as always for tuning in, and go Fish.
Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo and more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.